Hey friends, welcome to a soiree about time. Now, the idea for this theme came about 6 months ago in December of last year when I picked up this book called The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. And he basically, in layman's terms and in very poetic terms, because he's Italian and apparently it's just built in, he breaks down the physics of time and he kind of reconstructs it and explains that time is an illusion, but these are the things that we know to be true, these are the things we can hold to be certain, everything's relative. Which first of all makes me feel really good about the fact that I'm late everywhere, because it's an illusion anyway, but I will keep trying to be on time because, you know, that's important. But also includes such wonderful quotes like this. The events of the world do not form an orderly queue, he says, like the English. They crowd around chaotically, like Italians. And the world is made up of networks of kisses, not stones, as he's explaining the difference between things and events. So it's a wonderful book. I wish I could say I've finished it. I haven't, but that's not because it's not wonderful, it's just because it's meaty. But out of that, I wrote some poetry and I found some poetry on time, and we had this idea to do a soiree-themed time. So this first piece that I wanted to share with you is one that I wrote in response to the book, The Order of Time, and it's called On the Nature of Time, and it goes like this. Time, said Aristotle, is the measurement of change. He argued that without change, time would cease to exist. Cease to exist. What then do we call those seasons of waiting? Those times, pardon the pun, when it feels as though so very little is changing. When presence is more important than pace, diligence in silence over energy and momentum, moments. In the moment, being in the moment, we are called to be in the moment. Tethered perhaps to this moment, I am tethered, for others' sake, for my own moments, growing old, looking forward, looking lost. Stay where you're told, staying put. Does time pass? Does time True time, said Newton, passes regardless, independently of things and of their changes. How then do we describe those seasons when time, for want of a better term, slows down? When minutes feel like hours or stretch into days, months, years, time in arrears, paid up all at once. When dreams are decades long, patience is gone, but it is not yet time to finish or have done. Time. Time, says Henri Nouwen, speaking of those experiences now and then, those times of wasted times, when stillness feels restless, useless, fearful, boring, lonely. Time, says Henri Nouwen, when spent waiting wastefully, waiting on divinity, becomes a place. Time equals space, that in-between space of God. Here, in the regular, useless times, whether they be Aristotelian or Newtonian, times of waiting, who knows what is changing, sitting impatiently but being still all the same in those times, time, a place to be with divinity, a time, a space for God. Yes, says Henri. I notice, maybe only retrospectively, that my days and weeks are different days and weeks when they are held together by these regular, useless times. God is greater than my senses, greater than my thoughts, greater than my heart. I do believe he touches me in places that are unknown even to myself. I can seldom point directly to those places, but when I feel this inner pull to return again to that hidden hour of prayer, I realize something is happening that is so deep that it becomes like the riverbed through which the waters can safely flow and find their way to the open sea. Time, place, space. In the end, you see, it's all water. And that's the end of that poem. As you may know, I love poems about water, and I love to put water in places where it doesn't seem to belong. I wanted to read a piece by a poet that I've been reading called Rebecca Tantony, who I think is quite famous in England, and I just picked this up randomly in a bookshop. And she talks about time a lot in this book, and about learning about her grandfather. She starts this poem, which is called "These are the Things I Have Learnt People Leave Behind." Rings too small for chubby fingers. A photograph in which a stranger leans on a bar the same way you leaned into that boy. Recipes for banana bread. Golden Virginia clinging onto certain jumpers. The strange appearance of time, a flowery orange dress that is somehow still in fashion. Feelings you have, though you can't explain them, like an irrational fear of whales. A rocking chair, now by a window. The wonder of belonging, an ache to be in water, an attic with a trunk of things that you are too afraid to open, a jewellery box with a pirouetting ballerina inside, a great-grandfather clock donated to the local council by my own great-grandfather. Now stood outside the entrance to a job centre and a shopping arcade in Edmonton Green, East London. And this is the picture of the pirouetting ballerina. It's her in her book, Singing My Mother's Song. I'll finish with one last piece on time. This piece is called Dragon. The past. That strangest of all beasts, that is in fact just the tail and back legs of the present, which are in turn the chest, arms, and hands of the future. This is no cut-off lizard's tail, no docked tip of a terrier's tail, no bisected, disconnected entity of its own. No, the past is just as much a part of the great beast of time as the present and the future, and we don't get to abandon things in it. Just as an open abscess on one of our limbs makes the whole body groan, so an open wound in the past of us will not leave us alone. We need to heal our history to be whole humans walking forward. And let us not forget, of course, that countries are people too. I wonder what wounds and sins are bleeding, unhealed and burning in our own national history. And that's from my book, The Weight of Hope. Time is a funny thing, but I'm really excited to hear all of your reflections on it as well. I'll see you at the end of the soiree.